Yes, hi guy. Hi guys. I'm Alex. I'm Alyx Ye. I guess I will do a little bit introduction of myself. I have graduated from Beijing Film Academy like 2009, and then I moved to Vancouver, Canada, and then I actually went to Vancouver Film School, get did a little diploma, and then graduated from at 2013. And then since 2013, I've been working mostly nonstop. There's small gaps here and there, but like been working ever since. And yeah, like me and Lindsay was saying, it's been 10 years in the industry. And yeah, it's not. I have not been always working in rigging, but majority of the times I have been working as a 2D rigging uh, or we'll say harmony builds and then later on I start supervising. So yeah, that's kind of my background. Um, and I guess today we will talk a little bit about um, 2D rigging, cutout rigging, and harmony rigging builds, whatever you want to call it. It's all the same thing. It's sort of creating this structure in a 2D software that allow the animator to use as a puppet to create animations. Yeah. So I think mainly today what we want to talk about is to what you want, like what do you want to think about, or what are the things that you want to consider before you starting a project. So yeah, let's go to the next slide and let's get started. Yeah, so what do you sort of see things as you approach a new project or a new production? Is there's several important things I think are commonly being missed, or people might not really like consider. Obviously, it will be very different when you actually start working as a in the industry as a job. You won't really have a lot of control over a lot of things. So these are the things that you can sort of look at and think about, and maybe communicate to other department to actually like sort of get combine and get a solution. So the first is like, who do you want to talk to? So if you're working on builds alone, obviously you want to talk to your producer, you want to talk to the design team, you want to talk to animation team, and then you want to talk to the comp and effect team. These are teams that will affect your work and also will be affected by your work. So these are the people that you definitely in the very, very beginning want to start talking to. And if you're looking at it more of a personal project kind of point of view, these are the things that you also want to think about when it is let's say a personal project or a very small project that involve not as much as a whole team, but like relatively like like just a few person. These are still like very important things to think about. So we kind of have a few key here. Like for example, things to think about is like what's the style of the show? What different style? What have give you sort of different range of uh, I would say every single style of like animation cartoon has its pros and cons. Like certain style might make your job easier but also harder in certain aspect. So look at the design, look at the show style, look at the animation style that you want to achieve, and think about the function, and think about what can you do within like the little frame that you have. And then we come with like technical limitations, which also have several different aspects. For example, um, what kind of software you use. For example, we mainly gonna talk about Toon Boom Harmony and the software we're working sort of working in today. But there is also other other software out there that different studio will use, and obviously different software come with different limitations. And then another set of technical limitation is how involved you or how much you want to build your characters. So, for example, you can have a very, very simple builds, right, in Harmony, and you can, or you can even go fully traditional, like drawing majority of your frames, to the point that you can also rig your character to have master controller, have all the head tilts, have all the deformers, have all the functionality you have. However, that come with like obviously some technical challenges. For example, the scene will become very heavy, and like sort of for especially for later on for animation, for comment effects, they will have to deal with a very heavy scene. So what kind of hardware the studio is capable of providing is very important. Also, like sometimes you will probably want like some tech support from like a certain sometimes some studio will write specific script to just support a show, and if that isn't available to you as a tool, then certain thing might just not be like on the table. And then the last thing we have is lighting needs. So sometimes like is there what kind of lighting. So this is very a common effect kind of thing is what kind of lighting uh, sort of style are we looking at? Are we thinking about like hand draw lightings, or are we thinking about like a built-in light or shadow kind of thing, or are we thinking about like just really flat cartoony no lighting at all? So these different sort of situation will sort of provide or come with different challenges, I would say. Next slide. Any questions so far? Is there any point, I guess, is there any point that we wanted to talk about a little bit right now, or are we okay?
There is a question that's popped in
Mm-hmm.
if you want to answer it
Yeah.
now. But
Mm-hmm.
Megan's asking if Toon Boom is the most commonly used program for 2D, and would it be useful to learn other programs for rigging slash animating in? Because
For
Megan,
2D, I think it's Adobe Animate and Toon Boom is the two biggest one, I think. There are some, like at least in I would say in North American studio, that's as far as I know, those are the two popular one. There are some other software are being used overseas, like TV Paint, or there's some other ones that being developed. But those are, I think a lot of them are catered to a more hand-drawn animation style. So if we're talking about rigging and we're talking about, like cutout animation, then yeah, Adobe Animate and Toon Boom are the biggest two, I would say. Um,
I will
and
also add that I would say that Toon Boom is bigger than Flash in Adobe
Toon Boom
Animate.
definitely had more function and is honestly as a builder's perspective, I do prefer you like doing builds in Toon Boom Harmony. It makes more sense to me. Um, but yeah, and that's just on a 2D side, right? On the 3D side, I think there's much more other software that I don't think we really don't personally, just because I'm from a 2D background, I know of those software, but I wouldn't uh, Maya, Blender, those things. I wouldn't say I'm an expert of it. So yeah,
Our chat has actually exploded with questions, but
yeah, I'm
what we
trying to quietly read. I think we just gonna continue, and then I'm gonna
come
read
back
all
to
the questions. Yes,
come
let's
back
come back to
to
it.
questions. Yeah.
All right, so
Yeah.
we're on the next slide. So for productions, most of the time, there's a limit in every production, no matter what kind of production is. Like a personal project is still a production, towards like a big scale, like a movie production, um, or we're just in the middle, like doing TV or doing, like small but multi-person project. It's all production, and every production have its limit. And there's this thing that we like to say. It's like it's time, and it's time, it's the people, amount of people, and it's like it's the quality. And then like you can't please everything. You have to just choose what works. And if you want the quality to be better but you want to do faster, you just like you just have to up the scale. So team size really matters. So how big is the team? Like we're talking about build, so how big is the build team, right? How many people are in your teams is a something that like for sure me as a supervisor think about all the time, because not surprisingly enough, a big team actually isn't better. The bigger team is just means harder to manage, because at the end of the day, you can only go through so much, or review so much work, or do quality control so much as one person. And larger the team just means that you will start bringing, like you'll be like bringing enforcement. So as a supervisor, you would just have more leads that actually helped you review works. And personally, I don't really like that. I feel like maybe like like have like a character builds person and a prop builds person to review. It's kind of the sort of limitation of like a team. Anywhere go like any more people on that end is just gonna cause more confusions, and um not very ideal. And I have worked with like there's I think at one point like 16, 17 people team. It is exhausting. It's not very fun. So I think yeah, team size really matter. And I think the best time I have really is just working in, like a 5 to 8 kind of person team, and then everyone gets really close, chit chat, and like have a good environment is really nice. But yeah, something to think about a team size. And then next will be the skill. If everyone, if sometimes you don't get to, I guess, choose who you hire. So then, whatever you end up getting is whatever your limitation is at, to a degree. So the skill really matter. I'm not saying that people don't learn on a job and don't, pick up things really fast and get really good at it. But there's always this ramp up time, and at some point it's sort of plateau, and everyone stays sort of relevantly um, stable in their skills. And so that's something to think about. If everyone is fresh out of school, they might not be able to handle very complex builds in the beginning, at least. Then it's not necessarily it's not I guess what I'm trying to say is it's not as reasonable to sort of put something really heavy loaded on those people and expect a good outcome. So then likely they will the expectation will be different. The next will be times and character count. So it's if we're talking about like in a TV production, every episode have um every episode have a quota basically for how long we have per episode to work on work on the builds for this episode, and then also how many characters slash props are in this episode that we need to be working on. So it's sort of like a breakdown of like looking at episode, figuring out exactly how many, and then think about how long, how many time do you have. I have worked on a show that have crazy numbers, and the producer only schedule 1 week per episode. Um, and in the beginning, I say no, and in the end, they ask me why, and I say I already told you no, and you know he didn't listen, so we're super behind. It's not really my fault or my team's fault. It's just the schedule. And so it's very important to know, like how long you have to work on it, and how many work you actually have. These are things I think people should really consider, no matter what kind of production it is. I just glanced at the chat. I saw someone ask how fast should a rigger be. It's Personally, I don't think speed is the only issue, or the only quality. Someone can be really fast and really shitty, uh, and someone can be really good and really slow. It's not about the speed. Obviously, there is a sort of like generalized expectation, like for example, a whole character, including rotation and some library, like not extensive library, but some library should be around 1 week. One person should be able to build one character rotation for 1 week. That's how I see it. Obviously, different characters can take um, longer or shorter. Just depends on the design, but that's, I would say, rough estimate. And and sometimes I really like to just sort of assign work uh, just based on people's ability. Like I know someone are really good, but they're probably a little bit slow. I'll probably give them something that's hard and will take them longer, but I already have count that, like sort of prepare that in my head and divide it up. And the fast and maybe not so diligent people will get something that's need to be done really fast and maybe doesn't need to be the best build ever. So, and the last thing is character count. Lindsay jumped. Uh, last thing is character count. Sorry, episode count. Episode count is just it's episode count. How many episode it's in the series and how long you want it to be. Some of these I would say largely will probably involve how the producer times it. But it's good. It's important knowledge to know how many episode it is in this series, um, and yeah. So just to answer the question, small library take a week or turnaround. It's more turnaround. So I see like 3 days for the front view of a character, and then uh the next 2 day will be sort of doing the turnaround. It really depends. I'm thinking about 5 point turnaround right now. So like front, quarter front, profile, quarterback, back, but just one side, the 5 point rotation. If there's more rotation, it might take longer. If there's less then it might take shorter. And a small library normally just means like, like eye blinks, a few hands, mouse chart maybe. Sometimes a mouse chart, I consider it like another 2 days, or like a day on top of the whole rotation. So yeah. Um, I need to stop. I'm gonna close the chat because it's a little bit distracting to me. I can't help keep peeking at it. I'm just gonna stop. Sorry guys. Okay, next slide. So now we finished thinking about how production, like, and how the production is sort of related to like this production structure of rigs. Now we're thinking about the relationship between each department, um, that sort of have more or less sort of like relationship with rigs. The first department will be design. We kind of mentioned it earlier that design and show style really sort of dictate a lot of things, especially for rigging and obviously for animation too. Is that like how the character is or how the show looks, have a huge impact on how the rig's gonna turn out. A really simple design obviously will turn out to be a really simple rig, and a really complex design will just end up being, like having a much harder rigs or more complex rigs, and more pieces and stuff. So if you are in the privilege of like be able to talk to the director, uh, even before all of the character design have been done, then you're actually in a really really good position. I say sometimes it's really like it's really important for the rigging department to have these conversation to the art director or to the character and prop supervisors, because it will hugely how much they understand certain fundamentals of rigging is, and the sort of difficult challenge part are, um, how sort of how much that they can make your life better. So having this conversation are very important. We always like to sort of have example of what are a build friendly design. And for example, if there's a lot of textures in the design, if there's a lot of like small sort of pieces in the design, then obviously it will just make the build harder to make, or make things slightly more difficult. Um, and yeah, we have and there's obviously different texture, different pattern, the line, if it's taper or not, how to taper it, how does the taper look, and like is the joint fully rounded so we can make circle joint, or are the joints more angular, so then it become a little bit harder to make. I actually put a few sort of examples. So for example, Louder and Prouder, the Proud family, the new Disney, or not new, like a couple years ago now, Disney show. I have happened to work on it. Um, they have crazy amount of texture within the show. So if we look at the design here, these are not really the final design. Obviously, these are just something that I can find on the internet, but we already can see a few issues. For example, like on Penny's dress, there is this overall texture, which that is actually not bad. Like we are okay with doing overall textures on a flat piece of fabric because it's relatively easy. It can be pegged with the piece of garment, and it doesn't really affect movements and stuff. However, I guess this picture you probably can't really see, but there's also textures on Penny's arm shadows. So that would be a really tricky part to actually create, because the shadows are actually overlapping, especially around the joint. And one, how do you even make those shadow overlap is already a like a problem that you need to solve, and on top of that you want some sort of texture on it, which would just make it even harder because the texture, we always put texture separate as separate pieces to sort of invert cut into the shadow shape. And there's actually like, like if the two textures sort of overlap on top of each other, then obviously they won't look really good. But if the two textures sort of doesn't overlap, then they will create these little seams in the middle. So it either way, it doesn't look that great. So it is definitely some sort of thing that you want to think about, and if you can, just try to persuade people to stay away from. Same thing as if you look at Maya's gene, uh, she have this overall texture on her gene that is very sort of like not movable, I would say, especially around the knee area, it will become really difficult, or the hip, it become very difficult. We ended up just sort of convincing Disney to let us, like sort of break them apart and sort of put them a little bit separately. If you watch the show, you can sort of pay a little attention to that. We did quite a lot of so we did some shortcuts around it to like make it look like there's still texture, but definitely not this busy. Yeah. So I guess, oh, if we go back, we can also see that Maya's shoulder and elbow has this sort of pointy, this more pointier design. These are also something that we like to avoid, especially when we're working in like cutout animation. We like to keep joints rounded, just simply because if you're making a circle joint, uh, it's very easy, where to, create pivot points, and so then when the arm bends, it has a nice, a circle joint there. It's not really hard to, for the animators, it's just much easier to pose the pose. And when it become, pointy, normally it does involve with like animator have to like specifically pose them, or we have to like sort of think about something clever if it is like something that the show is like sort of rely on the show style rely. So those are something to think about. Try to think, looking at yeah, I think that's something. And then on the next slide, we just want to talk something about patterns. And there's a little lighting too. So uh, personally, I really, really, really hate uh, a plaid shirt. I know it's, very popular clothing style. Like I have one too here, but whenever I see a character that wears plaids in a show, I curse. I either curse out loud, or I just walk away and go into a room and just scream in a pillow for like 10 minutes, because it's really hard to do. Like it doesn't like to bend with the arm anyway, because it does how like you can't really deal with around the elbow, like how do you curve that stripe. It's and also no animator ever like to animate those things, so it's just become very tricky. Um, in Cloudy, actually, we also have review lines. I think Lindsay and I probably just blocked that memories of figure out how review line works. There's no outline in the show, and every time the sleeve goes across the body, the sleeve need to reveal its outline. And there's a very specific style that I remember the director wants how the outline to be revealed, and it didn't happen. Honestly, it's a nightmare. Textures and patterns and reveal lines. It's just something. It's hard.
This
I feel
show,
like I'm just complaining and not offering
I'm
solution.
gonna
I'm
I'm
sorry.
gonna I'm gonna cut in because this show was a real the show pushed a lot of our skill sets on technical levels, on management levels, on uh, patience levels. This was a resilience levels. This was a show that really tested us and our careers for a lot of reasons. And the lines was a very, I mean, we all can pick really good lessons walking away from this show. We all learned really, really good lessons that we brought with us on other shows.
Just don't do it.
Yeah,
Just
that's
don't
the
do
one.
it. It's not worth it. Um, if you ever think about review lines, I will put it this way: if you ever think about if the show ever had review lines, convince everybody to draw on top and just drawing it. Just don't put it in builds. It
That's actually
I have worked on a show that I managed to make
since
people draw on it.
I've worked on shows after this
Hmm.
where I believe that the directors and the people that worked on the shows, like the technical people that worked on the shows, they fought for not having the reveal lines because they worked on Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs and they knew. But this show also, the thing about the reveal lines is if you take a look at each one of the characters, they all have multiple colors in their limbs. And so that made for very specific rules that were, this is what we were always fighting for the reveal lines, is because when the characters have more than one color in their limb, the colors had to react only on specific colors. That means there has to be a lot of rules. That means every character is kind of built in a unique way. That's innovation, that's time, that's budget, that's also skill, technical skill. So you want to make sure that those kinds of things match up with your team. And at the time, we did have it. We got through it,
I don't
but
remember, but yeah, we did.
we got through it. But
I
the
saw
skill
little
level of the show was
questions
so
asking
high.
what's reveal lines. So basically,
You
some
can
shows like this crazy show, does not have outlines on their characters. So that means whenever a let's say if you look at Sam's sleeve have a lines that's in the inner like on the left side of her arm, and there's no line on the right side of her arm because the right side of her arm isn't really crossing the same color. That's what reveal line is. It reveals within its own color. So it's something that can be technically made in harmony to achieve, but it's a lot of headache. It's a lot of headache to do, and it doesn't, in my opinion, it didn't pay off. The amount of work we put in, it didn't pay off. Yeah, and just before we leave this slide, I also want to point out there is some soft highlight in the show. So I think for this show, the soft highlight is created by in comp. So comp people like sort of just off shift like the shadows and stuff and creating those highlights. But in some other shows, they might have a more specific highlight. For example, in the Snoopy show, in the Apple TV Snoopy show, they actually have a team of they call it light and shadow. That the team of people that can draw all the lights and shadows into characters. So that's something that we will talk about later, but I just want to point it out. Next slide. I can see this. This is getting fun. Just calling out next slide. It's a power move. It gives me some sort of power. It feels good. Okay, So now we get into the fun part, is animation. Because like we talk about design all day, but sometimes you really don't have controls over what you get. But animation is it's a I see it as like an upstream downstream thing. As a rigging department, animation is after us. So animation actually do have its effects on how a rigging department works in many different ways. So, for example, the style of animation will sort of dictate a lot of the style of the rig. If the animation is like, oh, we are really want to do hand-drawn animation but still have rigs, then you want to provide them with as simple of a rig as possible to make sure they can for redraw to be as easy as possible for the animators. But if the animation director was like, well, we want a really functional rig, then you'll start talking about, okay, so for function, what other function that's most important for the animation team? Because we can add function in the rig all day long, and but if they are not being used, or if they're not being used as much, then it's not efficient, or it's just doesn't make more sense to just keep like adding more things to a rig, because more things you add to a rig, heavier the risk get, more difficulty down the line. So it's very important to talk to your animation director for what kind of function they're looking for. And yeah, and is there, if there, like there is some sort of function, is there any special functions that the rig really needs? So for example, some style of shows really like noodly arms. And what I mean by noodly arm is like, for example, they like the character like to sort of do like a little bending of arm. I can't do a really good one, but like and like like create a S curve on an arm or whatever. And when that happens, a lot of animators will request to have like a full arm drawing with a curve deformer that have like like 3 points curve deformer, sort of runs from shoulder to elbow to wrist. So then they can like animate this waveform easier than having a joint arm that like like it will just be harder to create similar movements. So you're looking at creating two sets of arms, two sets of deformers, and also how to make them work. So then you likely have two sets of rotations at that point. um, yeah, so those are special functions. Or sometimes certain shows will want us, for example, like how character blinks. Like, are we doing like eyelid blinks, or are we doing drawing swap blinks, or how the mouse chart is? These are all special functions that the animation team, we should talk to the animation team and set set it up together, making sure, well, you can't make everyone happy. So at the end of the day, it's really the animation director and the supervisor who get to decide. And then once they decide, you just always refer to them. It's like, well, you know, so and so decided this. That's your animation director. Go complain to them. When if there's ever a animator knock on your door and start asking why everything is it what it is. And yeah, and at last, it's also like demands and reality is how long do you have. Back to like my earlier points, you can't add uh functions, you can't add all these functions, you can't add all these abilities, you can't add all these libraries to a build, because you simply, one, don't have the time, uh, or two, it gets too heavy and things won't work. So you need to always play in this balance act of like how much can it sort of being reproduced in a study stream. Yeah. Next slide, please. Oh, we actually, I forgot that this is here. We also, there is something that's, it's actually more design that we can, it's a reuse. So for example, these lovely arrow that Alyx Ye added, uh, have these characters that they're actually sharing the same bodies. So you can see like the girl on the right side of the screen on the top and the girl on the right side of the screen bottom, they actually share exactly the same bodies. So you technically only need to build one characters and just build different heads, sort of plug it in, like like kind of like Barbie, honestly, uh, and you get to have completely different new characters. Same as the two kids in the foreground on the top image, they actually are they share similar they share the same limb structures and the leg structures and the body structures. They're just one is with long sleeve and one with short sleeves. And this is another show that I work on. There is a lot of sharing library between the incidentals. Uh, we have, I think, four incidental type bodies. So like maybe like I think we have three female, three male, and then like two kids or one kids or something like that. So a little bit more, but yeah, it's a pretty cool show to work on, and it's actually pretty funny too. Next slide. So finally we get to comp and effects. Um, I think as a build team, our relationship with comms and effects are a little more distant because sometimes depends on the production, but sometimes the production doesn't necessarily have its comm supervisor and effects supervisor hired when build is starting. So just because how the schedule is and timeline. But if you're lucky enough that they already have them, it's great to talk to your comp supervisor and see what they need from build because the last thing you want is like 3 months down the line you already have a huge builds library and the comp started and the comp supervisor like, hey, our life is miserable, can builds change something to make our life easier? And then we just sit there and like, it's been 3 months, what do you want to change? Like so it's very important to sort of make sure like whatever you are creating isn't gonna make someone else's life miserable down the line. So normally what our comp supervisors thinking are ground shadows and lightings. Those are ground shadow are something that can be easily put in even though you don't have like a final ground shadow. You can just simply have a little setup in your build and eventually the comp could potentially just go swap them and change it to whatever ground shadow they want. So it is something that I always want to put it in unless I'm specifically told not to, because it's just something that's so simple and easy, and it doesn't really hurt to have it generally. Lighting, however, will be another thing. So lighting normally it's sort of just a general term to just describe shadows or highlights on you know on the character's body. If the show really wants specific shadows that sort of follows the characters, then you want to think about whether you want to build shadows in the build. Um, it can get a little bit tedious and annoying if like if there's a lot of shadows. Uh, I would say like if there's like if the shows that have too much shadow just always say like, hey, can we cut down some of the shadows. In general, like under the head, like a neck shadow isn't that hard to create. But if you're thinking about, like a shadow that sort of like perfectly sort of trace the head and then goes down to the body, those are the shadows that like normally will advise people to stay away from. Yeah. And then the next we're talking about like layering, or like like ites and stuff like that. Sometimes in harmony, when you use a cutter, it leaves a little gap. We call it halos. And once that happen, um, it's something that everyone should sort of just in general be like more aware of. And then preferences of, for example, like what kind of sometimes people want to have multiple output from the builds, like for example have the ground shadow separate, or or have different z depths. So like when you want to pop something in front and behind, some comp uh, artists will prefer them to sort of have a little gap in between for lights and shadows to sort of be layered in between. So those are, yeah, something that to think about, to talk to your comp supervisor about, and sort of have make sure everyone is relatively happy, or at least in agreement of what they will get next. So I think this is just a picture of how, like sometimes we'll have one output for the whole build, and sometimes we have two. And I even see like some people have a bit more multiple output for the builds. Normally, when you have a separate output for the job shadows, like for the ground shadows, and yes, I remember seeing a rig a while ago that like sort of have separate body part be separate output. Never really know the story behind it or the thought process behind it, but I definitely have seen it something. And the two green line is for I think hand pegs. Yeah, because sometimes you want to the character to hold props, and having the hand pegs going out of the groups is very nice and convenient for animators. Do we have another slide after this? Oh, templates. Okay. I think before we talk about templates, let's answer some questions, because template is something that I think I will want to sort of creating and showing people how to do it instead of sort of verbally describing. Just because it's a concept that's a little bit harder to understand. So yeah, let's look at some questions.
Okay, I've got a question.
Uh huh.
Uh, how much control does a rigger have when they're building a rig, or is there a template to follow?
It depends on your supervisor. Or if you don't have a supervisor, then it's all in your control. Some shows, it depends on what kind of production you're on. I have worked in production that have no templates, and just sort of like they have existing builds for you to follow. And or if you starting uh fresh, like starting from beginning, then they might not even have a example build for you. And then I have to work on some shows, Lindsay knows that we have pre-existing builds that doesn't build in the studio, that everyone has to follow just because we need to use a pre-existing asset. I personally like to provide my team with template, just because it's a much it's have a faster turnaround. As soon as everyone get used to the template and get used to using it, It's easier, it's faster, it's also easier for me to, go into a build and doesn't need to figure out if everything is at its right place. So yeah, I would encourage template. If there is template, it's always good. I'm a template lover, honestly. I make a lot of my own templates.
I would say too for templates, what's really important is, or maybe not what really important, but the thing about templates is it usually comes with a history of a studio. So if a studio's it's been using Harmony for a couple of years, they usually have a little bit more of an in-depth knowledge of the program and how they use it relevant to there. So templates usually start to come into play because studios want to get faster and they want to start getting more innovative. Um, and so I would say that that's probably something, but it doesn't necessarily mean that if you're joining a new studio or if you want to work independently, you can't create your own templates. That's one of the reasons why, even in the animation class, we talked about reusing libraries. These are the most efficient ways that studios really get ahead when working in animation production. So templates and reuse libraries are definitely the way to go. Um, Even if you're sharing work amongst your friends.
Um, I just saw a question. What are template like? A template, it's not even a nude doll. It's like it's empty. There's no. I think normally a template have no drawing art. It just have all the pegs set up. It has like limit amount of cutters. It has a lot of like pre-set up to how the structure of the build without any artwork, I would say. Just because deleting artwork is also work, so normally they won't have anything. They will have probably all the layer selectors set up, and they will have all the maybe all the sometimes you will even have cutters set up and have pegs set up, the hierarchies and stuff like that. But none of the pivot points will be set. None of the artwork will be made, and likely it's just a bare bone. It won't have like clothing pieces or hair pieces. Just because those are things that will vary between different designs, so they won't have it. But I also do have work on shows that create generally it's like shows that already have a type. So if you think of, like, for example, My Little Pony, they're all ponies, and um obviously the Allegorns or whatever have different body type, but all the ponies sort of have the same type. So I can see like those kind of shows might have like a naked pony builds that get dressed up um, down the lines in production. But not necessarily. I'm just saying ponies for not that that's what they're doing, but that's what something that could happen. Like for example, if like Care Bear has a show, then the other Care Bear probably you can create a naked bear to be redressed into different Care Bears.
We can also show a little bit more of the templates when we get to the demo portion or
Yeah.
like the working portion, the feedback
Hmm.
portion.
Hmm.
We have another question about okay, and I'm going to reword this question a little bit. One, we couldn't tell you how big too big of a rig is in the megabytes, not megabytes, but like size wise. I think that
Hmm.
would be really difficult to say. But the
Harmony
question,
have a calculation, I think, you can turn on to see how
it,
heavy your build is, but I don't know how reliable that data is.
it's hard to read. Actually, I know
Yeah,
what
right.
you're talking about
Yeah.
debug mode. You're talking about debug mode,
Mhm.
and it reads everything in milliseconds, and it's you can sometimes find a hot spot in a rig, but it's a lot easier if you know how to read coding.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
for, for
I would
normal.
say I would say the easiest way for me to test out if a build is heavy or not is to obviously whatever your computer setup is, you will have a relatively functional computer that can run Harmony relatively smooth, like pretty smooth, right? So then in a scene, if you start duplicating your characters, just copy and sort of paste special them, so you have several of them that all have different, like they're all their own thing that you cannot re-alter uh, one of your character and then effect all the other ones because essentially you're just faking them to be different characters. If you copy them and paste them, you want to see how many characters you put in the scene to start chucking your computer. I would say if you have 5 character and it's already chugging, then your build is too heavy. Obviously, all of these are affected by what kind of computer, like your computer sort of spec is. But like when we're talking in general, if you have a relative not super good but like not a bad computer, then if you are running if the character you're running 5 characters is already heavy, then it's definitely an issue. um the sweet spot I would say it's around like 15. Like 10 it's like, oh, you have a heavy build but it's still functional. 20 will be, oh, these builds are relatively light, crowd scenes will not be a problem. So that's how I would say how heavy a build weights are. That's the way I test it anyway.
Okay, so Diego wants to know when the animators still draw quite a bit, what is done to a rig to allow that?
When a star draw quite a bit, what is down to reach allowed drawing on top? The part of it can be hidden.
I think
So I
it's
like to put I like to put like these things like that's like a drawing within sort of a drawing within the build. So I will give a drawing for the arms. I will give an actual drawing for the legs. I will give actual drawing to limbs, like sorry, bodies, and then heads, and maybe even like um other body parts sometimes, just so that the animator can turn off all of the rig and start drawing on top of them. But when we're talking about if the goal of the rig is for animator to just have a guideline and then just draw completely on top of it, then you might not even need deformers, or if you need deformer, they're very limited deformers. You might not need like a lot of detail pieces, or if you do need the detail pieces, they probably don't need to be too like invert cut into the pieces or something like that. There's a lot of corner that you can cut when we're talking about like a builds that simply for the animator to draw over. It just essentially it end up just being like a bare bone rig. You probably still have circle joint. You probably still have bodies, but the clothing might not be several pieces that can be moved, or you don't bother putting deformer in them and stuff like that. When a drawing doesn't have a deformer attached, it normally make it easier for the animator to draw, like just make a new drawing and draw it. Uh, there's also a way to make the deformer so that when you add a new drawing, the new drawing doesn't get affected by the deformer. So you just always have to have like a split um, deformer. What's it called? Like a uh, it blinks on me. You just always click on create new deformer when before you even start making your deformer to have that function. Do we have more questions? Or does that answer your question? I actually should ask. Is that clear enough? Do you have follow up questions?
Going through the questions as well.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody wants to build reveal lines for their whole rig. So good luck. I said good luck, Megan. You can sit,
I
you can do it.
I highly recommend, instead of build review lines, just think about you always draw that line. It's much better if you always draw it because you can taper them and you can have style with them and you don't kill yourself rigging it. I highly recommend. It's great. It's actually faster and
It
less
might be
brain
fast.
cell.
It
It
actually
less
might.
brain cell. Yeah, a school project. How many minutes are we talking about? If it's like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you better draw them. It's not worth your time figuring out how to rig them. I'm
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm being too harsh. Sorry.
We just have a lot of. I'm not. We
Let's
just have
see.
it hard
Yeah,
on
we have a
time
lot
and
of questions.
attention calls.
Uh-huh.
How important are master controllers?
I would say, luckily, I have not worked in a production that needed master controller. Finger crossed.
And I'm
I'm.
going to say that I've built a lot of master controllers, master controller heads mostly the head. You can put anything on a master controller though.
Mhm,
You don't have to limit yourself to a head.
mhm,
Just they are built for that left to right movement up and down, so really nice. A stack controller is also really cool because then you can build mouse shapes in all those head rotations. But it's a lot of work, and the thing about master controllers is you need to have them set up properly. You have to be very meticulous with your rig for them to look good. Any mistake that you make is going to compound over several frames. So you have to try to be as perfect as you can using master controllers, which is a bit frustrating because it's hard to be perfect in rigging. It just really is. As good as you can be, it's hard to be perfect, and that's something that is really important and what we try to put out as much as possible.
mhm.
Uh,
I also do want to point out this that it's one is time consuming to do to create master controller. Not that like when I say I haven't done it in a production, that just means that I haven't worked in a production that is strongly request for it, and also a production that have time to allow the time to have that built in. Um, and also it doesn't mean that I don't see master controller. Uh, I don't see the value of master controller. I think it's actually pretty great. I like it. I like having the head tails made and stuff like that. I think it's pretty cool. It certainly like made the builds sort of more 3D like sometimes. But it just that I it doesn't translate when you have a redress. So especially for like a TV show when you have a main character and you spend so much time working on it, and all of these work might not translate to the character redress. For example, if they have like some sort of things, some different hairs, let's say different hairstyle or different like clothing, and then the mouse controller might just not work, and you need to reset up. It's just a lot of work. It's something to think about. And actually, go back to our previous point, skill levels. Not everyone is know well enough to set it up. You have to have trainings. I feel like you probably have at least like couple like a few days of just training and then a few months of just beating it in people to do it in a certain way for it to be set up properly. So it is a very like specific. There's a lot of specific thing that you need to do to be able to get there.
yeah, I'd say just to echo what you're saying, the most important part about a rigging team is really getting everyone to look like they are all the same person, rigging style. You don't get a lot of like in animation, you get a lot of creativity where you can take liberties to make a scene and act a certain way. But in rigging, everybody kind of has to output one idea, one shape, one style, one technical skill. And that makes life a lot easier for animators and compositing artists, anything that's flowing down the pipeline. So that's probably the hardest part.
Mhm.
So master controllers can bring up a lot of unique challenges for those.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I do want to speed this up because we're cutting into our feedback time, which is important. But there's some good questions still coming. So we're gonna put a pin in the questions. I'm gonna ask two more. I would love to hear your response to this one, Alyx. But what are the most important skills to know to become a 2D rigging supervisor?
Important skill to know to become a 2D rigging supervisor. You almost need to be a little OCD, I would say. I picked a better word. Lindsay used to call me other words. Um, yes, I say you almost it kind of sort of echo what you say earlier, that everything need to be the same, like in a build. Every single character build you want that is created by your team you need to have the same like style of the build that need to be the same. So like for example, if uh for naming, for example, you want to always name, let's say, your arms and your legs and your limbs the same way, whether you choose left arm, right arm, or front arm, back arm, however you choose, they need to be the same. Through like that's just little tiny minute details that some people might be like, why are you always picking on me to change the name of it? Just because they need to be the same. So when someone else go into your build, let's say an animator trying to find something, they once they understand the first rig, they can apply that knowledge to the thousand of the rig coming after that. Um, so you want to maintain your pegging sys hierarchy relatively the same. You want to maintain, like your sort of arrangement style relatively the same. You always want, if you put the hand behind the arm drawing, like, on the right of the arm drawing or on the left of the arm drawing, you just want to keep them the same so people can find them easily. Labeling, these are the things that just like very like little particular things. And yeah, and on top of that, it's like a lot of communication skills, which I'm really bad at in the beginning, and I hope that I'm better now than I am 5 years ago. But yeah, communication, make sure everyone check in with everyone, make sure the team is happy. You always want a happy team than like a stressed team. uh, as a supervisor in general, you are the one that takes all the stress and makes sure everyone else isn't feeling as stressful or doesn't feel the stress at all, if possible, so that they can work in a relatively stress-free environment and produce their best work.
And actually, I'm going to add to that last point because that is really what drove me to start Eat Your Peas is I wanted to know as a supervisor, how do I deal with my stress when I'm taking on everybody else's? So I don't know if I did that so well in production. Maybe I could have done a little bit better, but I would say the number one skill to be a supervisor is to really take care of yourself so that you can take on that stress because it's not necessarily going to be an easy job, any supervising job in the animation industry. So we'll talk more about supervising one day. We've got one last question, and I don't know if you've got an example for this, Alyx, but I know
Mhm.
I have an example for this one. But have you ever experienced or heard of a production where the show wasn't initially planning to use rigs and that caused problems down the line? I'm going to stop the question there because it's a long question, but I have worked on a show where we used rigs, but I don't know if the director wanted it to be traditional, And so I believe the show's on Netflix, and you can go and look it up. I know you'll know the movie The Croods, but there was a TV show. This is about 10 years ago. I don't exactly know specifically the year that it came out or the name. I don't remember if it's Dawn of the Croods or if that's the new movie that came out. I can't remember the variation of the TV show. But if you take a look, you can clearly see the difference within the first 5 episodes. So I believe the first 3 episodes are rigged, and then after that, the show was actually pulled from us because the director wanted traditional. And I believe you can even see some major style changes where the lines were colored in the rigs, and then they went to a black line for traditional. So you can go ahead and I believe it's on Netflix. You can take a look and look for that, and you should be able to see where the show goes from rigged to traditional.
Yeah, I don't think I personally work on a show that doesn't want Rick in the beginning and then want Rick later. But I definitely have worked on a show that doesn't know what it wants in the beginning and it slowly find its way, and I think that's very painful. Uh, because as as you know, like as a rigging person, you always want everyone to know what they want, so that you can sort of produce that instead of like having to like chase the answer out of people. Yeah, and there's definitely like some shows definitely know how to work with a rig. Like this, the designer knows very clearly what they wanted it, and managed to like sort of show that in their design and then make it really easy.
So I'm
Uh,
gonna I'm gonna say if anybody needs to take that quick micro break, now is a really
mhm.
good time. I'm just gonna stand up, stretch my legs while we do this. But again, this is something every hour you should just be moving. It's so easy for us to sit down for several hours a day. It's very bad for your body. So if you want to be an animator forever, stand. Have a quick break with me and stand and just shake it out like a weirdo.
I'll
Uh,
have to say that I don't know how people like have these like little uh treadmill underneath their working desk, like the really tiny treadmill that they produce now, that they like, oh, I'm doing treadmill while I'm working, and I can't do that. I need to be so still and clench.
I don't know how people do the treadmill and work, but or jog, but standing, stretching, it's important. 20-second break, so good.
20-second break. Posture.
Okay.
There's so many questions. I'm a little bit sad that we might not get to everyone. If you have a question that you really still want answered, maybe type it again, and so it will make Lindsay see it. Where's my Cintiq pen? Sorry, 1 second.
Yeah, we'll save the rest of the questions, and we'll get into the feedback portion for the session. And if there's any questions, feel free to ask them. If we're looking at your work and you have the ability to unmute yourself and you want to talk to Alyx directly, you can. I'm pretty sure I saw Ty in the chat, and Ty already knows that you're looking at their rig. So
Okay, so I guess we'll go over TPL very quickly, because it's a very important thing, and also we'll go over what does library means to like rigs, and then we will start looking at other people's builds. So let me just so I have some templates here that I made a while ago. They're just some simple arms that like jointed arms and stuff. And what a TPL is. So a TPL is a file naming convention that Harmony come up with, I think, that allowed you to save a thing, a group, or it actually doesn't need to be group. It can be anything inside of Harmony library, and it's I would say probably the only way to transport file that sort of have all the information you need instead of just copying the folders. Because I think when you copy a scene folder, there are information that actually will be lost when like zip that folder and send it to someone else. Sometimes palette could be like palette linking could be lost, or if you have like certain nodes, some of the information are will it's sort of related to how it's code. It will go to a direct file location that is in your computer. That is when you give that file to someone else, they will not have access to obviously any of the folder in your computer. So then therefore the link is sort of broken and it won't work really properly. So that's why we like to save any builds or any rigs that you create into a TPL, and then send it to people. So, for example, I have this really shitty rig that I made long time ago. Please don't make fun of me, but it's just a rig, and when you drag in from the library, you can see it has its own. All right, because I built it wrong. It has its own palette come with it, and it has everything that comes with it. So I'm just gonna sort of demonstrate how you want to save your build as a TPL. Let's say this is your build. Um, what you do is you always want to find a folder. I already have a folder here that I created. If you are not sure how to link a folder to the library, what you do is you right click and then you go to open library. And then once you go to your open library, you can see you can access your folder structure. I'll just make a new folder just for demonstration, and I'll call it library or lib for sure. And then you select it, and once you select, just say select folder, and you can see now this little folder have showed up in your library. It's always locked. Any folder you created in your Harmony library is always come locked, and all you need to do is right click and say write to modify. Once you have write to modify, you can change the name, you can add a folder in it, and anything. And this folder actually is in your filing system. So if you're Windows, you can open your Windows and find it. I think same as an Apple computer. But now, once you have it modifiable, all you need to do is just Control C, copy, and then hover your mouse within this Windows and do Control V paste. You get this little pop up asking if you want to rename. I don't really want to rename. I'll just say OK. And you can see it already come with the folder structure just called .tpl. And just say OK, and now you have it here. I normally, what I do is I instantly goes back to the root folder. I right click and unclick the right to modify. So just click again. So I have this little lock symbol. So it's locked. So now that there's nothing wrong will happen to your TPL. And I just want to quickly grab it. So if you look at in my computer, you'll see it's here, and then here we have the .tpl happen. So yeah, so that's how you create a TPL. If you ever want to show anyone your work as a rig, I would say save it this way as a copy and then zip that folder and send it over because it will essentially have everything you want them to see. Um, there's more to these Harmony library. For one thing, you can actually save action. There's something called action library. If you animate a piece of work, you can do the same thing, save it in your library. And what you can do is you can apply it to your build through action library. Um, or you can just copy the keyframe and paste it over. Um, but libraries are very important for you can create your own tools within the library, and so you can drag and drop them easily. I have, like I have a few things that I always like to carry around with me. For example, I have some job shadows that just already made, so it doesn't. I don't need to make them again. I have some palettes. Mainly the palettes are just for naming purposes. So if you,
I do parts of the body when I have to, if I have to rig something often, I will do parts of the body instead of the whole, like I'll do a whole
mhm,
rig too, but very easily I would template like an arm or a leg so that I could reuse
mhm.
that rig structure over and over and again.
Yeah, yeah. I have a character palette. I have animal palettes. I actually have limb palettes. Sorry, templates, limb templates, and arm templates. Sometimes I will have eyes templates. Sort of just something that I like to create. It's nice, and when you're actually doing work, you don't need to create them over and over again. You already have something set up. And I think we did mention templates a while ago, so might as well talk about it. My templates are these are some old template I have. They have specific naming conventions and specific rules towards them. For example, the naming conventions probably a little bit weird. And normally I leave a lot of little notes for myself and for whoever is using to sort of remind people what they are, what they do, anything that need to be renamed. For example, when you're doing, a production rig, everyone wants the master pegs to always name the same way, same as the position pegs, and the group naming always be the same. And you always want to, make sure that the display within the build to have the same name as well, because then if someone want to just turn on that character, they can instead of instead of um instead of have to like disable rigs in their node views. And we talk about having a separate output for job shadows. For example, what I just did, normally job shadow will be on the very right, on the very bottom of the build. And if you want, you can have it come out of the multi output and then come out from here. Let me just make a comp very quickly. So if the comp artist ever want to, let's say, add a transparency, or they ever want to add blur to your job shadow, or whatever the combination of the effect they want to add, they can just easily put it here, and your ground shadow will be nice and rendered. I think this one actually come with a blur, so that's why it's a little bit cut off. Um,
Okay, I'm
any,
going to, sorry, Alex, I'm going to
mhm,
hijack you a little bit because we
yeah,
have 30 minutes left of our
ooh,
session. So I want to go over some of the stuff that's in the Discord before we jump onto the rig.
okay,
Yeah, there's a couple things in the Discord that we could look at, and then we'll jump into hopefully this only takes about 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll have 15 minutes for that rig.
Okay.
Uh,
I'll stop sharing.
so if everybody, you can follow along with us, or you could jump to the Discord channel. And what I've done is I've scrolled all the way up, and I think you can see what I'm looking at now. But I specifically asked for this character to be put here because, Alex, I'd like to hear your thoughts on. I can't, and because it's a GIF, I can't pause it. So unfortunately, that's the only negative. This is before we knew that we couldn't pause GIFs. But I want your thoughts on the things over the joints, the wraps, the knee pads, um, the shorts. Do you have any comments about, like, for rigging wise, what that would be like for a character or for a build artist? Ah, Leora and Sticky Z in the chat. Nobody knows what Sticky Z is. It's not really a secret, but it's a technical it's a technical
Sorry, I didn't
technical
realize
skill.
I muted. Thank
I
you
was
for
wondering
catching
why
it.
you were so quiet.
Yeah, I was talking and then I was yeah. So I personally I guess hate is a strong word, but I personally dislike any fabric that goes across the limb and not goes across enough of the length. So what I notice is I because there's no color, it's just a guess. There is a band-aid goes across the elbows. It kind of is more like on the forearm here, but it's sort of affecting this elbow area. Um, yeah, are you drawing?
Yeah.
So I think that would be a small issue. Just because, for example, let's say when your character bend their arm, right? When they bend their arm, you want, let's say you want the forearm to be on top of the upper arm. Then the bend where the band they sit will be like a little peculiar, same as where the band aid on the wrist sit. The animator will constantly need to adjust those little details to match them. So I would really say just simplify it, avoid any of these fabric sort of going. Same as where the ankle is. I would say if he is wearing like a sort of ankle protection thing, um maybe just lose it. Just because you anything that involve into also anything involved into hands and legs. Normally, hands and legs are just a drawing. They don't have deformers. You don't want the hands or legs to have deformers. So when you have like a drawing compared to a shape that have deformer and can be morphed, and then the band-aid on top will be like a drawing that's invert cut into the lower legs or the upper arms or whatever, the forearm, then you kind of always constantly fighting for the pattern, fighting for it to work, fighting for it to match. um, Especially the feet look really big in the profile view. It's kind of going up towards the calf, then it might poke out from so then like the socks, whatever that thing is, it's have to also cut the leg somehow to make sure the leg doesn't poke out underneath it. It just small detail that does not break the style, or as we consider, it's like does not it's not worth the hassle.
It's
So
but here's the thing that I really like this rig. I really like this build. So
mm-hmm.
I'm gonna counter what you're saying because
Yeah.
I want to figure out and I'm always the one who wants to tackle the problems. Um,
I'm also the one, but like, can we not? And
Yeah,
if we can, then we talk about it. But if we, like my
I think
first
that if
instinct is like,
you,
let's not.
I think that if these bandages in the upper arm were separate from the hand and they were built straight, you could use one deformer that would go through it, and then this deformer could, it could either bend the bandage that way or bend the bandage that way. You're gonna have anti-aliasing. However, I think because you might be able to use those bandages in your advantage, to your advantage, and hide the anti-aliasing depending on how you do this part and how this is put in the bills. But the part that would drive me nuts is you would have to do all these hands, and if you had to do a hand library, anytime I have to draw jewelry on a hand, if it's got rings, of nails, all these little individual lines, that stuff takes time. So to me, that's where I would probably get the most frustrated, is having to draw those
Yeah.
bandage lines individually on the hands. But I think that having them go up the arm would be pretty
Hmm.
good.
And
Um,
also they're asymmetrical, so one hand has the bandage and another hand doesn't. So you essentially need to make
oh,
two
I didn't
sets of
notice that.
hands.
It's moving so fast, I couldn't even see that.
Yeah, I think the
Maybe
left arm, the left hand doesn't have bandage and the right hand does.
if you're gonna go through all that trouble, just double down
Yeah.
and go for
I would say if we just talking about watches and maybe like a something around your wrists, I would say make them bump out, make them floating. Like let's say if it's a watch, make the band bump out slightly, instead of having invert cut to your arm. Because when it bumps out, then it can cover your joint. When it covers the joint, it's easier for animation instead of trying to worry about how it invert cut. Because you can have a normally, or I wouldn't do it, is I wouldn't so let's say we have a band that goes across your wrists. um, I would always only invert cut this band towards the forearm joint and not have it involve your hand joint, because when you move your hands, let's say like any angle, you don't want your band to sort of poke into your hands and somehow show like a little tidbits of it at some weird area. So but if we are doing that, then when you like sort of positioning your hands and positioning your bands, sometimes it doesn't, when it does touch the hand, and when you do want them to show on your hand joint and it doesn't, it also create issue. So overall, I think if it's I'm very practical, honestly. I sometimes don't think about it in a really artistic point of view. I'm just like, if it bumps out, then it's just make my life easier and make your life easier. And it's a small detail that I think very, there's definitely numbers of people will care about it bumping out. It bothers them, but I would say uh, more than 50% of people don't care, and that's something to think about.
I jumped to the next one just to
Mhm.
start it off, and I'm flipping through these drawings.
Mhm.
Um, I actually like how this character is turning out. Actually,
Yeah, I
he does
do.
a really good job. This
I
is
do
really good.
like how it turns around. It
Uh,
everything sort of everything is there's no volume changes. There's not a lot of
yeah,
thing.
it's
Uh,
actually really
in
well
the
done.
in the quarter front, I wonder if the quarter front is a little bit too quarter front ish. Like it's very clearly a quarter front. Instead of a what do you call it, like a favoriting the front.
He's looking or they're looking like too far
Yeah,
in that direction. Uh,
it's
yeah,
so normally in this sense, sometimes the show will have a additional angles between the quarter front and the front, just because they don't always want, especially when you have a headshot, like when you have like a close up for just a talking head, you want the character to sort of looking in, forward direction, but not look straight towards the camera. So normally it won't be a front, but the quarter front angle might also be a little like too looking to the side.
Something that
Um,
I like when I go to the back view and then I flip back to the front view, I love it when, if you notice,
it
nothing was
matches exactly the same. Yeah,
it matched.
yeah,
That's
it matched. It's so good. I like it too. It doesn't always need to match. It's just nice that it
not perfect.
matches.
The hair is asymmetrical, so
Hmm.
it's rotating
I
very.
don't. I don't mind. I don't mind asymmetrical to a point, and I like that it's actually pretty minimum when at its cleanup. It doesn't have a lot of things. It's relatively simple. I like that
Yeah, the hair
I
tracks.
never know. I I like how the boots is. Um, but sometimes I want the jaws, like like where the jawstring is at the boots, to stop before the feet drawing. Not that it has to, just something that I like to point out. Yeah, like, well, not adding that. Just like I wanted to sort of. Let me just put a little drawing. It's like if you have like a boots, you just sort of have it like.
You'll have to draw it and then put it into the chat.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's what I'm doing. Just give me like 10 seconds.
trying to.
I can't. Can I not paste a? Well, I'll just show my screen then. Oh, I can't either. Well, too bad. You guys don't get to see it because I don't have a good way to post it. Just something to think about. It's not a bit. It's honestly not a deal breaker. Sometimes we have those a lot, and I do them a lot. It's not like it's hard. It's just more annoying.
Their main question was the shoes on the rotation, but
Hmm.
if you picture this person standing on a disc, there's the Bell would be able to do this pretty well. If you picture this person standing on this disc and then we hit play, like that, those shoes are doing really well. Like you could nitpick and you could drop. I was debating whether to say this. You could drop this profile foot down maybe a little here, but there's no popping. There's no real popping.
Hmm.
I think that it's done
Uh,
very.
yeah, I think it's pretty good. And honestly, sometimes professional doesn't do that either. So
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to do.
it is.
You always want to. Sometimes in your front view, you can do like you could find the center point in your screen. Harmony does have Harmony does have X's like this somewhere in the
Yeah,
middle
like
that
a guide.
you can
Hmm.
turn on, and if you draw a straight line in your front view, you do want this space here to be equal. I would say that that's a pretty important part.
Hmm.
But it's not a deal breaker. And I think we've all built characters off center so many times.
Yeah.
So
And also another thing is sort of to think about is like the character is not gonna always be standing there rotating. The likelihood of you actually see that on TV is very slim. So most of the time they will start moving, and once they start moving, a lot of small things like that won't be noticeable.
yeah. And this person actually made this suggestion where they took the arm off and also put the arm back on and showed the backup or the back.
I love people showing
I
like
love that
through,
too.
like, yeah, that's such a nice thing to
No
do.
rule. It just as a designer, builders don't draw, so it
Hmm.
just helps. It's not our skill set, so it helps if a designer can add that in for us. Yeah, I like that too.
It always like bothers me a little bit when you, for example, in one dress up, one outfit, you don't see the, let's say, the back or whatever, and then they did a redress, and then there's probably some specific detail that added to the body, and then now you see how the body is, and you're just like, oh, if I have that body, like I don't even need to do any changes now. It's already done for.
Okay, we've got a rigging reel to look
Hmm.
at, and then we've got this little image was uploaded very quickly
Hmm.
while we were presenting, so we'll try to look at this. As for the rig, we will not be able to look at another rig. We've already downloaded the initial rig,
Hmm.
and we're going to be kind of close, but I know we've already looked at that rig, so we've got a couple things that we can
Yeah,
say.
we'll try to go through it fast.
Ah, I'm gonna turn the audio off because we don't need to hear that.
Yeah.
Master controller head. It's a good skill to show.
Hmm.
It's really it's not always the way studios are gonna rig. So if you don't have the ability to show master controller head, I like to tell people that it's not gonna make or break a demo reel or a rig.
Hmm.
But I like that the network's clean. I like that
Yeah, I think
I
this is really good. You show off like the function of the build.
mhm.
You showed
that's
off
really
the mouse
that's really all
chart.
we want to see.
Hmm.
The other thing that you could have shown, because I've already looked at, we've already looked at this. The other thing that you could have shown in this rig is a high quality render just to
Yes.
see. We can't see any if there's anti-aliasing, so we
Hmm.
can't tell if you're understanding cutters. So
Hmm.
that's something that
Especially around the eye area, I would say when you move the eye to, move the pupil to the side of the eye, you should hit render and show the render mode to show that if there is a, like a halo or alias there. Another thing I would say is that you might want, if you want to show off your master controller, you want it to be uh really I would say you probably want to add a few more poses just because the in between is a bit uh
that's pretty good though, because you can see the timeline here.
I think
There's
the rotation is good, but I think when you goes from corner to corner, not sure if they have enough in between there. Or like I would say I feel like some of them doesn't look quite appealing.
And so and what I noticed is in this view, oh, this is I don't wanna pause it on a bad frame, but there's a lot of deformer points. So when you are working and showing off your deformer points, you want to find the sweet spot um, of what is too much and what is too little for deformer points. So I'm gonna go to the pen and right here. So if you take a look at these points, there's one, two, three, four of them. There's actually six. There's a little one up here.
Hmm.
But each one, if I count, there's a deformer here. There's a deformer here. I can't really see where the deformer is here, but I think there's another one here, and there's one up here,
Hmm.
and here, and here, and that's too many. You can do this shape. That's a bad triangle. But you can do this shape with one, two, three deformers, and that's going to cut your work down in half, in more than half. So you really want to be careful of how many deformers that you're using because these are all. I think what you're probably thinking is you want to control where these points are connecting. So like where this triangle intersects with this triangle. So I'm assuming that you're trying to control this right here. Um, but I don't know if it's necessary because what you're doing is you're really doubling the work for any animator that has to use this for their posing because then they have to go into each one of those deformers and essentially nudge them into place to make it look really good. And it's really possible that instead of getting a smooth curve line like right here, you might get a little bit of a broken line, and any animation director is going to catch that. So that's something that you would want to keep that line smooth as possible. So having 3-point deformer, or like 3 points for this deformer, 1, 2, because it's a triangle, will give you those smooth lines.
Yeah, and also, like I think the for a lot of people who starting doing rigs, they sometimes feel like the deformer need to match the drawing 100% or at least really
Mhm.
really close. It's not don't think of deformer like that. Think of deformer as control points you add to the rig that allows movements. And how do you want, or how do you see the movement being or the movements needed to have, like which point do you just needed that control basically. So like for example, if you have drawing a piece of hair, really you're thinking about the tips of the hair and the volume of that piece of hair. Nothing else of the curve really matters for the animators. Even if it doesn't match, they can always match it, like just take down a notch to match that line. We have a
So
new build here. I don't think I've seen this at all. It's from
this
today.
this was just put up while we were presenting. So this is going to be a quick. This is going to be a quick. It's a bit blurry, so it's kind of hard to see.
Mm-hmm.
Um, make it a little bit small. It's hard to see. Make it a bit bigger. One of the things that I'm noticing is you've got the two hands here. So we're going to look at this from a build perspective and not an animation perspective
Mm-hmm.
as well. Um, and so I've noticed that the two hands are, one looks like it's overlapping really nicely, where the other one, it's got the full, it's almost like the hand is coming at you. So if you're looking at the
Mm-hmm.
screen, my hand is coming at the screen, but the
But the
hand
thumb is at the wrong way though.
posed down here. Well, the thumb's okay, but
Mm-hmm.
that overlapping line makes it look like the thumb is in a weird spot.
I
So
wonder if it's wonder if it's just like the cutter isn't working or the hand is
hard to say because we can't see the
hard to say. Yeah, because we don't know we can't see the rig.
yeah. There's also this overlapping artwork right here with the hair.
Mhm. I think what I guess what they did is they have the hair invert cut to the overall head shape for the, yeah, like that. So then they have an issue layering that piece of hair uh, under the arm because the arm is under the head. So yeah, that that's normally why I don't like doing these like sort of invert cutting things too much when it comes to like major body pieces, because layer sometimes can be a little challenging. Um,
It's sassy rig. There's some good poses in
very
here.
sexy. Yeah.
I'd recommend throwing this in the animation chat. They'll probably get a little bit more feedback from an animator.
Mm-hmm.
But for rigging, and I mean, I don't notice your like you've got the overlapping lines here. And Alex, I'll let you drive the next presentation, and so you can share your screen or get ready to share your screen. Um, 'Cause I know that's something that we wanted to talk about in that rig. Uh, but I like that you've got here, and I don't notice anything. Like I don't notice any of your joints breaking. That's kind of what I've been looking for
Mm-hmm.
mostly in this animation, or like what's going on with the elbows, because that's usually what I look for first.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Yeah,
notice
I'm
any.
still thinking about that piece of hair. I think I would probably just make them separate. I think I'll make them separate, or I will make I will make a bigger cutter. I will make it cut instead of invert cut. So I'll make a cutter on the side of the head to create that head shape instead of invert cut it so that it invert cut into the head.
There it is. Oh,
Yeah,
lost it.
it's fine. I think we see it. I like the expression. She has such a great expressions.
Okay. Okay.
All right, all right.
That's let's get to that rig.
Yeah.
Last but not least.
Mm-hmm.
How do I get out of here?
Stop sharing. Hmm. I don't know why I can't share anymore. There's a to share. Ask the organizer.
Oh,
You need
sorry.
to make. Yeah. There we go. Yeah. So I think we have this built here. It's actually I peek at it a little bit earlier. It's actually pretty nicely organized. Don't just remember delete floating little bits.
And I believe Ty's in the chat.
Mhm.
So if Ty wants to unmute themselves, they are more than welcome to. Actually, Ty may have left.
No, I'm here. Hi, sorry.
Oh, there you go.
Hi.
Here, I'll put headphones in so there's no feedback.
Just quickly going through. So okay, so the eye isn't invert cutted, which is fine. I don't have an issue. I actually like how you make the um, closing of the eyelid with the closing the eye with the eyelid. Um, what do we have here? It's eyebrows. A lot of time, I think instead of showing the fill, eyebrows normally just do a cut. So if you just in using your color art to cut the whole eyes, that's fine. It doesn't. It has a function. Do you want to keep consistent whether this thing poke out or stay in? I'm just gonna
I
do.
hadn't really thought about that.
I think normally it just okay. Normally it's just something that people just I guess I just noticed they poke out. You do want to make your pupil invert cut to the eyes if that is the style. If the pupil is okay just hanging, that's fine too. There are shows like that that does it. One thing I do notice because the eyelid is invert cut into the eyes, you kind of lost this little bit. Not sure if you want to show it. You also are missing a bottom eyelid. I would add that in, same as the top eyelid, just because sometimes you will have something come up on the bottom. That's pretty nice. Oh, actually,
Yeah, when we were looking at this rig yesterday, and we found it very intuitive.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got a really good you have a really good base here.
Mm-hmm. It's
If
not a bad rig, for
Yeah,
sure.
it's a really good rig.
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing that most people want to know is, can I get a job with this rig? And as a supervisor, definitely, I would
I would
definitely,
say yes. Yeah.
yeah. I think what you're showing is a good, clean rig. You're showing some advanced knowledge. You might not know the advanced knowledge you need to know for a specific show, but you wouldn't know that because
Mm-hmm.
you never worked there.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that you're showing some advanced knowledge, and Alex, I don't know if you want to show off the hood.
Oh yeah, I really like the hood. I was just gonna
This
talk
is
about the halos, but I really liked how the hood is because I was thinking about that earlier because when we were looking at the other girl when with her hair, I was like it's the same. It's kind of the same concept. You have two pieces that you want to go in front of the face, the head, and then you sort of layering on top, and then you invert cut to the general head shape. That's kind of what I drew on it because it's very similar. I was thinking like how would you like sort of fix that little issues? Normally people probably would be like, oh, just sort of like like either like raise the hair piece or raise sort of get it out of the way or something like that. But I think it could be something like functional but still working. I really yeah, I do like how the hood is like it's kind of smart.
Thank you. What classmates and time and energy were put into trying to figure out how to put it together.
I would say for pieces like this, I know the reason why there isn't the outline isn't continuous is because probably at the back view it's like this. What I would do is actually make two drawings, one
Okay.
that have a full outline and the second that doesn't. Because sometimes you just kind of need that line there for let's say like certain function that you like, oh, I want the little thing to go like so, and if the outline sort of break there it doesn't look great. And I just noticed there's a little thing here. Oh, what are these? Oh, they're little patches. That's cool. Oh, I see. That's pretty cool actually. You might only need one. Is there a reason why you have two, just to cover like the
Yeah,
amount of spaces?
I made this rig like a month ago, 2 months ago, so I completely threw everything out. But yeah, I think it was just to have more control over how much is being covered if you want to like
Mhm.
taper the line or something like
Right.
that.
I would say it probably doesn't need two. I would say just do one and give it a deformer.
Okay.
It's yeah, unless you have a specific reason that you actually need to at some point. It's not that necessary. I do want to talk about Halo because I think everyone is curious about Halo. So or anti-alias. So this is what we're talking about. Or whenever you have a cutter that do invert cuttings, what you there's several ways of how people combat this. Some people do add a oh, you do have some people like add things to it.
it's the increased opacity you're thinking.
Yeah, I'm not, I don't have it in my favorite. I'm just gonna search. Yeah, this thing. So what normally people do is they put it above where the mask gonna go in. And what you can do is you can just put a number. You don't want the number to be too big, but you can see if I put a 5, then it sort of covers where it is. But then you'll likely have a little bleed on your outline. But that's the sort of the trade-off you have. If you give it a much bigger number, then you can. Actually, in this case, it's actually fine. So yeah, so you can use increased opacity. Sometimes you will see people just instead of using increased opacity, they'll just do this and just keep dragging lines in it. Um, I have heard people tell me that that actually make the bill heavier, but I personally don't notice that much difference.
Technically,
Technically.
you're creating extra connections, so you're
Mhm.
technically creating places where the computer needs to. Again, it all comes down to microseconds of like how many times
But
it's
yeah.
down. So, um, it's not this. It's not. It causes other problems as well. And now I'm forgetting what it is. But yeah, the multiple connections is a band-aid that can work, but in a professional setting, you might want to avoid it.
Hmm.
There's always another way to get rid of a halo. There's
Yeah.
so many
Me
ways.
personally, preferred a different kind of cutter to avoid halo. So me personally, I like to add a cutter to the eye instead of um, using invert cut. I cut the eye, and we don't need this. Actually, I probably need this like so. And I will have a color art for this one. So, and then you will still invert cut the line art, I think. So, like so. So think of it as even though it's the same artwork, you're actually using it as different purposes. In this sense, you probably will kind of need a little handles on this, otherwise, because when you select this, it becomes your hat pieces instead of you have to click on a line for your eyelid.
Mhm.
Because your fill, I mean, you can still have, I think you can still have your fill, like if it's like so, it still works. But using your color art to cut the eyes, you kind of sort of get rid of them completely underneath. So when rendered, they just don't poke out anymore. That's another way.
Okay.
I kind of like to solve it this way instead of adding increased opacity, because increased opacity isn't, it's a band-aid solution. It doesn't fix the problem. It just sort of make it go away a little bit. Yeah, same thing as how if you want your pupil to sort of invert cut into the eyes. I know you don't have it here, but let's say that's what we want to do. Um, and let's say you want to, a lot of people do use auto patch to invert cut like so because the pupil might be a different color. That's also where the halo happened. So in that sense, I also will just be like, just use the color art because because in your build, your color art, actually there's a small buff between your color art line here and your pencil line here. Just by this little bit, it sort of helps your situation. Um, or just, put line art on top like so. You can do that. It'll look good. It's just different small things that you can alter your builds to sort of avoid halo, and it's kind of to understand why the halo exists is because the color are bitmap for some reason. We the whole program or like all of the drawing are vector, but whenever you connect to a cutter, the second it connects to cutter, it become a bitmap, and then the mask is also become a bitmap. So when two bitmap cutting each other, they just have this sort of little pixelated thing. That's how bitmap works. Yeah. So whenever you cut, just sort of think about it. How do you want to conceal your halos? And if the halo is necessary because you see it more when it's light color on top of dark colors. You don't
Mhm.
see as much when the value of the color are similar.
Thank you
Okay,
so
thank
much.
you so much. Oh, sorry, Ty.
Oh no, you're good.
No worries. Um,
Okay, Alex, I'm going to cut you off officially, you and Lukey.
Sorry
You know,
we went over
went
time.
over time, but I am going to call it because over for Alex, she's in BC, so it's not 11 p.m. for her, but for over here in Ontario or Quebec or wherever you are, it's closer to quarter after 11. So we should go to bed. But yeah, I want to say thank you again for everybody that's staying up late with us because these are a lot of fun. These classes. Are quite large, which is very exciting. So Alex, thank you so much for being here tonight and showing us your wealth of knowledge and experience. And for everybody else, I hope that you have a wonderful night.